Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. And I am so excited, I do this wrong all the time, to bring you these ladies right there. Oh my gosh. Liz and Nicole they're in Austin, Texas today when they're not traveling the world. They are the co-founders of the Community Factory, and they help event organizers inject more community into their events and through their own communities and work for corporate clients. They help marketers connect. So hello, ladies.
Hello.
Big Friday. You're welcome. I'm so excited. Let's see. Tahira introduced us at the Site Young Leaders Conference at IMEX, 2-3 years ago? Is that right?
Yeah, that was October 21, maybe? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I remember all those Post-it notes all over the wall. And we had to talk about, I don't even remember what we were talking about, but
whatever was most important of the day.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So tell everybody what the Community Factory is.
So Community Factory, we realize that while the room that you're building and the event that you're building is very important, what's most important is what happens inside those rooms. And so the Community Factory exists to help people bring that community feeling to the events that you're creating so that you can pay attention to the details and also pay attention to the attendees. Because too often we just make an event, put the people in the room and say, people know how to do an event, go for it. So we're here to try to help make sure that people get connected, impactful connections, profitable connections, and that happens at events. And then in between events, helping to bridge that valley of engagement by keeping the community going if it's right for that particular organization.
And that's what we call community as a service, or CAS.
And then we run 2 communities of our own as well, actually 3 communities. So one is called Ichi, and that is for, we call it professionals who love the business of events. And then we have one called Team CMO, which is for chief marketing officers. And then we have our Grown Up Girls Club, which is just for a bunch of us middle-aged professional women that love to hang out and learn a new skill every month. And right now it's in Austin, but we're looking for people in other cities to start helping us bring that to the rest of the U.S. and the world.
And the world. Why not the world? Okay, so there's a lot to unpack in that whole thing. And so my first question to you after that one was, what is community? And I saw on your social media that you used it as a verb and as a noun.
Right.
So can you talk to the audience about that?
Yeah, I think we want to anchor on community being a verb. It's less about it being your Slack channel or it being your event or it being your online whatever. Community is a feeling that you create. And you can do that at an event, whether it's a one-day event or whether it's an association that goes on year-round. You can do that in the Slack channel. It's the feeling of bringing people together for a common purpose and for like that feeling that they're with their people.
Yeah. And it's also an emerging industry of its own. So it has the whole titles of different roles and that kind of thing. And those are evolving as companies are saying, like, we are a community focused, or we want to be a community focused and growth led company. That's how we want to do it, is by connecting with our customers, like, no, going back to basics. But we really hark on that and say, like, it's an entire industry. There's roles that are specific just to that are full time. And if you put the money there, then you'll have the return.
Well, and I think it goes back, you just said that. It reminds me of when HR turned into people strategies at my old corporate job, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's really that same concept, right? Is bringing that community of people that work for you, but also, like you just said, Nicole, your customers.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay, so because we're talking about food, I want to talk about how do we, I have this concept of it, and this is my feeling about it too, but how do you use food to foster community?
there. From the very beginning, we've thought that food is the thing. Breaking bread together comes down to the basics and truly sharing and having that communal experience, community, get it? So when we did our very first event together back in 2017, it was all, the intent was family style. So you go find out what all of the challenges are with people, and you would be surprised how easy it is for a chef to actually create an entire spread of family style options that meet all of the needs of the people. You can have vegetarian, you can have vegan, you can have gluten-free. All of these things are possible for your chef to create, even in a family style environment. If you have all the right things, people sit down at the table and they're passing each other the dishes and they're sharing without cross-contamination. It's not that hard to do. And so we believe that as the very first thing that you do at an event, having it be family style meal gathering, that just changes everything.
Yeah. And it's a really easy way to get personal, where we say business is personal for sure. That's what we believe. And everybody has to eat. Like, that is one thing, whether or not they're eating the same thing, it doesn't matter, but it's something that's understood. And so that's a way when you sit down, that's what we love, family style. Can you pass the salad and whatever else? Like, it's a way to serve each other and be present in a different way, because it literally nurtures your soul and your body, and you don't have to talk about it. It just provides, eating together at a meal, it just provides that automatically. And if you can capitalize on that and understand like how to facilitate the conversation in the right way without being too strict, and just making sure it's the most inclusive activity that there is for humans.
And even when you put it with, like, let's say we've done a supper club event, and the rule, one of those, like a rule for the night type thing, is you're not allowed to pour your own drink. So someone else must grab the wine bottle and pour it if you're looking empty. And so you just inject that feeling of service and belonging and hospitality into an environment. It just changes the mood.
Yeah. It was Priya Parker in The Art of Gathering. In her book, she talked a lot about how she gives everybody a role. Oh, there you go. Yeah. And we just love that, because if that's some people, like, they're like, okay, I'm sitting and I ate. Now what do I talk about? If they have something to do and watch for, it's amazing. And they feel automatically that sense of belonging that it's not that hard, and it's so powerful.
Like, it's my job to make sure everyone has water. That's it. And so you see someone, now I got to get that person water. Like, yeah, it's your job for the night.
Yeah. It doesn't stress people out to do that?
We found that it makes people feel like they have a purpose in the evening.
Okay. And they get to choose. Yeah. So you don't have to be really, we don't assign. We can go around and who wants to be, here are the jobs that are needed. Who wants to do what? And then they get to pick. Oh, I can do that. I mean, I spill water. I'll never be the water person. I would dump it all over their face. So that's not my thing. But if somebody's like, oh, make a centerpiece, whoop, that's me. So
that's a really cool idea. It actually reminds me of a slow food event that I went to years ago with Alice Waters, and everybody had to go, and it was like a schoolyard lunch, right? We had to go and everybody had to get the different pieces. Somebody go get the salad, somebody go get this. And it really fostered a sense of community in that, and bringing it back to our individual table.
Yeah. I think what really saddens me when it comes to especially corporate events is that when you're 2 weeks out from the event, the budget is getting crunched because something went over somewhere, and you're looking to see where you can pull back. All too often, and I experienced it in my 20 years in corporate, we go, well, let's cut back on the break. Or we don't need to do so much for this dinner because some people will probably go out or something like that. And so I feel like not paying attention to something that is so important to the experience of an event, or actually diminishing purposefully like something that's so important to the event, is really detrimental. So I just want to encourage event professionals and event marketers who are doing these really big conferences to not skimp on that part. There's so much opportunity to create community around food that when you dial it back and just give people granola bars and apples for a snack, you're going the wrong direction.
I mean, but that's got to be hard nowadays with the cost of food and beverage and the cost of coffee. I mean, I've been in a couple of groups that people are getting charged at hotels $190 for a gallon of coffee before gratuity.
A gallon of coffee?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know, right? And so they're like, well, let's send everybody to Starbucks, right? Let's give them a Starbucks gift card. But in a way, you could actually create that sense of community standing in that Starbucks line, right?
Yeah.
Versus the other.
Yeah. I think another thing that could happen too is just like right before, if you're having to cut, is a lot of people work with obviously the person that's, whoever the rep is at the hotel per se. But if you really like ask for a meeting with the chef, get the chef involved and explain what you're trying to do. And what you're trying to do is not cut costs. You're trying to build community and have engagement and do whatever you're trying to do as your goal. Obviously have people reason to talk to each other and have them gather around food, but you have to go down in the budget a little bit and then ask what they can do to still be creative and hit the goals of community while adjusting the budget of the food. So then the community gathering or whatever you're trying to build around the food is never cut. But you can do that for different price ranges. You could do that for $1 trillion, or you could do it for not a lot of dollars.
But also, did you really need 3 $75,000 keynote speakers, or could you have just done 2 of those for the sit and get moment and take the other $75K and put it into the community building human connection portion, which is probably going to be around food? So I think that those decisions, when you're designing with the intent to build community and to bring the people together, you can make those choices. I mean, they're hard. It's a hard conversation because we're so used to being like, well, I had a $300,000 keynote budget, so I must spend it on $300,000 keynote people.
Right. And actually somebody wants to pipe in here that the gallon of hot water is $190 as well too. So yeah, it's all inclusive. Yeah.
I'm going to start rolling around with a shopping cart of like eating things and just be like, hey, you're going to try me for this plug.
I know at $80 and we were like, why are we paying $80 for $190?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was a long feed in these Facebook groups, which
I feel like we need to call this place out, but we'll go back.
Yeah, it was a couple of places, so it's not even just one. Okay, so the other interesting thing that you said is like, let's start about food and beverage at the beginning, right? And I have an education session called Food and Beverage from RFP to Service, because you do have to think about the food and beverage at that RFP site and your site visits, right? But it usually gets left to be the last thing because they just go check things off. So do you have any suggestions on what you do incorporating that chef from the get-go?
Yeah, I would say that first it's how you're thinking about it before you get on the phone. So think of like, if you're the producer or the meeting planner of the event, you're the host. And so now let's think of this place, that the location of the event, as your house. And in your house, when you have people over, what is the center of attention? The dining room table. And if you're not sitting to eat, it's a beautiful coffee table. And like the first thing you do is, can I get you something to drink, and have some kind of food beautifully displayed or whatever it is out. And so I would say that how we incorporate the chef is saying that, like, we love to talk to the chef directly because we want to give them an opportunity because they don't get it a lot. So make it about the chef. We want the chef to feel special and really be feeling connected to our event because what is he or she not tried in a while, and give them the opportunity to be creative. And as long as they have all the frees, right? Gluten-free, all those things included, and understand the allergies and the budget, then have them come up with something that's not just standard, and say, like, even just the way we display it, how does it come in? How do we incorporate the chef into the food? Like, don't even be in the kitchen. Can you serve people? Can we eat with us? That would be really cool.
Yeah. And I think that we don't know from a food cost perspective necessarily what's going on in the world. So when you look at a menu, we're like, well, the chicken's always the cheapest, I'm going to get the chicken. But during the times of avian flu or the things that were on, the chicken was the most expensive thing on the menu. And so you order these things and then all of a sudden you get sticker shock. Like, wait a minute, it was actually cheaper to have steak. So if you talk to the chef in advance and make sure that they're connected with what's going on in the world, and tell them the purpose of your event. Like, if this is a demand gen sales event where I want the people focused on their conversation, that meal is going to be very different from this is going to be a community focused event where I need the people sharing and talking to each other. So one might be a really high end steak and prosciutto wrapped asparagus with the red wine kind of thing, because now you're trying to wine and dine folks. Whereas the other might be more of an Italian break bread, share the spaghetti kind of moment where people are having to hand each other plates. And the chef will understand what you're trying to do.
Yeah. And I always suggest gang menu. Like, back to the olden days of the event, that what's happening before us, that you can just order, doing something different than the event that happened before you. But when they wholesale purchase one item, that's the same time, a lot that they can do there to multi-purpose it. It might help the other event too if they want.
No, and that's a great sustainability practice, right? Is understanding what else. Oops, that's the wrong thing I wanted to put up there. Sorry. I wanted to put up what we're talking about. Yeah, I mean, it's a great sustainability ways because you're not wasting food to make something completely different, or the staff, especially with staffing issues these days, ganging those menus up of what else is happening. And maybe having him put a twist, he or she put a twist on what they're doing with that food.
Well, we have this philosophy of our about food at events, and that is you should always have three things: something people want, something people need, and something surprising. So the something people want means the food has to freaking be edible. We've been to enough events where you're just like, actually, that was not eaten.
Yeah.
Like, what was that? Something people. So that's something people want. Something people need. It has to meet requirements, and it doesn't mean that the thing you're feeding everyone has to fit everyone. There can be the special meals and all that, but it's really not that hard to, if you do a protein and a vegetable, and like you can do this without harming a lot of people that have allergies. And then the third one, something surprising. So when can you mix it up? Could you do the ice cream break at 10 a.m. instead of making that on the afternoon? Or could you make the afternoon one a ridiculous waffle bar and have people do great, but so that they're going to talk about it and go, oh my God, I've never had waffles as an afternoon snack. That's crazy. And how can you turn it around so that people are going to have a shareable moment?
The one surprising thing that we've always wanted to do, we talk about this for years, but we still haven't really done it, is a lot of people say, how do I get people into my trade show? Well, why don't you put lunch in an apron and have it be a walking lunch, and they can walk around either the trade show vendors or wherever you want them to walk, or just walk around and talk to each other, or just go on a city tour with their lunch in an apron. Like there's a pocket for trash, there's a sandwich, there's whatever else. And there's just, you don't need to waste anything. It all goes in this apron. And it's so cool. Just even that is surprising, right? Yeah. I'm eating off myself here, but that makes them talk about it. And somebody does it, other people are going to take it.
And there's so many grab and goes. I know a lot of corporations are moving to the grab and go lunch so that you can just get your thing and move along. And that's where you bring in something ridiculous like the apron and make it the community building part of the conversation. First, you decorate your apron, even if you want to have that table. And then you have 4 or 5 pockets. One is for the bottled water. One is for a sandwich. One is like, it's hilarious and fun and keeps the momentum going. And it's not just, okay, I got my box lunch and now I have to find a corner to sit in because they didn't even.
Yep. You just have a coat racks with a bunch of people, put them over the thing, tie in the back, and get them out of there.
Well, and it reminds me when the ladies with the champagne, right? The champagne skirts, right? That first came out. That was such a big novelty and like something of that. But like you said, but with the attendee, not necessarily then entertainment, right?
Like you're inside a lot.
But it's also a perspective shift. On one of them is, I don't have enough money to rent tables. I need to do grab and go because I can't afford the buffet or the plated lunch. I can't do these things. And so you come at it with this like restricted, constricted, can't thought. And then the other way is, actually would be really fun. We don't have tables. You're eating out of your apron. The grab and go is intentional and it's going in these spots. So like it's much more of an abundance mindset. So really just trying to take that budget constraint and turn it into a community building opportunity.
Yep. And Susan posted in here, I love the idea of breakfast for lunch / dinner. And
yes.
Yeah. I mean, we don't do that at
everybody loves that. I try to be so excited when it's pancake day.
Yeah. Well, even for dinner at home, right? We do that. I'm like, my mom and dad had waffles last week, right? Yeah. So it does add it up. And to me, that's a surprise and delight too, because you do it at home and you're so used to boring chicken at dinner. That is something unique to do. And actually a couple of weeks ago, I posted a story about the mashed potato bar, right? That was like all the rage in the 90s, but it's actually pretty still fun, right?
It is. And the cheese bar too. That's equally fun.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So do you have any particular philosophies on food for events? Have we already talked about it or do you have some more?
Well, we talked about our 3. So that's something people want, people need, and something surprising. So that's the primary one. The other one is just really planning to not cut back on the food. So it is our absolute, like if you have to go cut budget, don't pick food. Cut something else. And work with the chef and make it feel abundant. I think, what else would you say?
Yeah. I mean, when we're talking about like things you could cut instead, like you have a lot of people that are volunteering. What can I do? Use your salespeople and that kind of thing and make signage to cut back on those really expensive, one-time, not sustainable, just directional signage and that kind of thing, and have it be more host feeling rather than arrow.
That's right. That's a really good idea. And I love the events where the executives are making the food. right? Where, especially an employee event, where instead of the servers, it's your CEO and your CMO. They're the ones actually serving you instead of the other way around.
Yeah. I think my other major philosophy is to completely ban the 72-inch round table. Because, and I know this is going to be controversial in our food industry world, but I hate that really super long waiting steak. Yeah, I hate it because you're stuck next to beautiful on Instagram, terrible for conversation. You need two people next to you all night long. You can't talk across that crazy centerpiece they put in the middle to talk to you on the other side. And same thing with the 72-inch round. You got the two people here because you can't get to the people on the other side. So more restaurant style seating or smaller rounds, or rectangular tables, or bringing that in so that there's actual conversation opportunity.
Yeah. And we say 4 to 6 people, not 8 to 10.
Well, and that reminds me of somebody that their sponsor was sponsoring an event, and she said they were going to do 6-inch round or 6 people at a table. And that sponsor's like, well, and I want the bigger round so I get the 10 people. And then at the end of the event, they were like, oh my God, this was so much better because I actually could talk to everybody at the table.
Yeah. And we also like to seat people. So a lot of times we open the door and it's like, whoa, lots of choices. And if you've had enough of people, you're going to have to sit by them anyway. You go to a random table by yourself. Now, of course, people are still going to join, but we seat them, introduce them. Oh, Sarah and Bob, okay, you're going to start the table. We're going to keep filling. And then you fill that table till it's full. Make sure everybody's introduced to each other and then move to the next one. That's a big, huge component of, and if you have a lot of people doing that, it's long up bottleneck.
Yeah, we've done that for corporate events where that's where we invite the salespeople to help us, and the salespeople become those hosts seating people. And if there's someone that they actually like need to sit next to for dinner, that's where they're like, you know what, I think I'm going to join you here. And now they're out, right? So they're no longer hosts, but you got plenty of other ones to come in and start filling the room that way. And it does provide that level of hospitality that feels much more personal.
Yeah. You can arm them with some questions, if you know what I mean? Like, How do they facilitate conversation if they're not good at that?
Well, and that's actually, I think that's a lot more welcoming and community building, because that's what we're talking about, than doing even assigned seating when you're like, okay, hey, here, do this, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And the most important time, or the best time, the most impactful time, I should say, is in the morning at breakfast. Because now, especially on the first day, because people are coming in, maybe they flew in last night, they didn't come to whatever you did the night before, if anything. And then having, okay, I know somebody that's attending the event. Awesome. At least one person. And I do know somebody that works here. Very cool. So having them seated at breakfast day one is big.
Oh, that's a really good idea too, because I mean, we only think about it at dinner particularly, but doing that at breakfast, because we are there to foster new business, right? As relationships. And
people are fresh in the morning, even if they're not people, they're not like drained from the day, if they are already drained from the day. And sometimes around dinner, they're just like, I just want to eat and I'm done talking and everything. So we love breakfast.
So Susan just posted in here something else. She's used different color Fiestaware plates on a buffet randomly stacked. And then you need to go to the table of your plate color.
I love that. Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I like that, Susan. Yeah. Yep. And I know MPI North Carolina, which I'm a member of, when you come into even the general session room, they're giving you a number, and that number is the table that you go to. So it's getting people not to sit with the people that they know.
Yeah, that's very helpful. We were talking about that today on another meeting where it's kindergarten, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Yeah, 2. Exactly. Yes.
Wow.
And I still think having choice, because some people really do or want, or they just are anti. Then this is suggested, but if you really don't want to sit sporadically, then there's tables over here on the left. So give them options.
Yeah. How do you, this is just random question, but individuals who have disabilities, right? Have you had to work that accessibility need into your community building? Have you done that before? Thought about that?
I'd say that if there's somebody that has, call them exceptional, that they will tell us. And if they'll say, I'm bringing somebody to help me. And then now we know, okay, cool. So they're always together, making sure we talk to them and what else can we get you? Feedback throughout the day. But a lot of those people will tell you in advance. And if they don't, then every place is really ADA compliant, and you just notice and check, is there anything else we can do? Make sure the catering staff knows. And nowadays you can't not have all of that stuff, but I think just hearing and asking, is there anything else? Is this an okay seat for you? And then being flexible when you need to make a change. And they're super appreciative because they go to so many places that are just not flexible, and then they have terrible experiences, and they're an attendee just like everybody else.
We had an event in New York that had a very difficult entry point, and for the wheelchair couldn't get in, and that they had to go like around the back and use the creepy internal one to get her to where she needed to go. But the conversation that we had with her was, how much do you want us to check in with you throughout the day versus constantly like making that person feel more awkward by having extra staff on top? And she was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for asking. I'll come to you if I have a challenge, and my major challenge is going to be the restroom, getting back down that elevator. So I'll let you know when I need you. And so it was, I guess, again, that care moment, right?
Right, exactly. And Chaz is saying that these are great, brilliant ideas that we're sharing.
Thanks, Chaz.
So thanks, Chaz. There was a question that I had, but I forgot. A bad scenario. I know you shared something with me before the show, but do you have an example of a experience that negatively affected the food and beverage experience?
Oh, wow.
Okay, so we were at this event. Pardon me, the dog is getting tangled up in my power cord down here. So we're at this event, and all of the food was, I wouldn't describe it as grab and go, because you were supposed to grab and stay, but it was individually and beautiful, like in these beautiful glass, whatever. So like imagine the carrots and the celery are in the hummus and you get this thing. It was great. But that means that you have to pick up the carrot and celery to eat it, right? So how do you hold your drink while you're doing that one thing? Well, you would put it at a table, but there are no tables. So the whole thing, you were like, hey, you hold my drink so that I could.
Yeah. It was like the opposite of what do I do with my hands? It was like, I don't have any hands. So I really think that I put myself in like, how did this happen mode as I'm standing there, because I have no patience for that kind of stuff. I'm like, look to this, bring them over. Like, listen, honey, you should have done whatever. But I think it was really beautiful Pinterest pictures as an inspiration board. And then they had each of those experiences, but they never sat in an attendee chair and then got up and said, okay, now it's time to eat. What happens? And so, oh, wow, I don't have anywhere. And then the tables were really spread out, like the high boy tables, and there wasn't enough of them. So it was like people were like sitting on the floor. It was so weird. And it made people angry, because then you're also hungry because you can't figure out what's going on. And then there weren't enough trash cans with the waste. So now the tables that were small already had all this stuff on it. And you're like, sorry, can you? Oh my God. And drinks are spilling. It was terrible. So bad. Yeah.
There is so much to unpack in just that experience. I mean, my God, the tables, I mean, the staffing, which comes into a whole nother level of conversation. And like, but where are the tray jacks for people to put their,
right? Oh, they would keep cleats. So they didn't have
to. Yeah. It was beautiful before people started eating. I was like, oh, whoever was this is.
Well, and I think that's a really important thing for people to think about. And an experienced meeting planner hopefully is going to think about that. But somebody that's new to this industry or new to that, or even a catering manager, how do you convince your event planner or your host of that event not to do that?
Yeah, I think it's just the walkthrough. So when in my corporate world, we would always have, we called it the executive walkthrough, and it was planned for, obviously you would do it virtually before the event started so that people understood the flow. But the physical that morning, we had to walk our executives through everything that was going to happen. And at that moment, you would uncover these things. It was like the executive having more experience than anyone else who had done these things and having been to lots of events would walk through with you and go, okay, and do we ask those poking questions? Do we have enough tables for everyone to eat this way? And then you would go, oh, actually, no, we should probably get some more tables. It's just those little things. And so even if you don't have to go through the horror and stress of an executive walkthrough, doing that yourself and think through the attendee mode. I'm going to walk through the store. What's the first thing I'm going to see? Is the co-rack really the first thing that I want my attendees to experience when they come into this area? Or could we trade that out for giving them a mocktail on their way in and then getting them to the co-rack, or making all that happen at the same time? So what's the feel? And just do it yourself.
And I think the do it yourself is sometimes you have to be literal, because maybe they've never done that before, where they're thinking, okay, the checklist items, right? This is where our general session is, and then the food's in the next one. But they're not thinking of like, I am an attendee. I get out of my car, I go up in the elevator, and then I sit here, and then I'm done, and then I walk over here. And those are the things of literally walking through, thinking as an attendee, not walking through to make sure everything's okay for the event. So you walk through the attendee experience, not the planner experience.
Right, exactly. All right, Susan's piped in a question here. What are your thoughts about the food truck corral for budget conscious events? Are they still trending in food and beverage?
I think they are, especially with the festivalization of events that's been happening for the last 10 years when that whole idea became popular. But it's nice to supplement the regular food or replace the regular food if you can't supplement it, but giving people those options, and also adds the local flair and flavor. As we did at one event at the Austin Convention Center where we couldn't bring in at the time the outside vendors, but they were able to. We had to use the convention center food, and they brought in like food truck facades, and that the way that the chef worked with us to make it feel more like bite-sized things, like even if it was still Food Francisco, that it felt different, and I think that it's still really fun.
Yeah, and I liked, where were we? The event where they had, it was like a circle and there was all the food, but they brought in, it was the local people coming in as well, and they had stations, but it was like this little, like, really cute, like they had the market lights in the middle, and the only thing they didn't have enough trash cans and where to put your plate, but like they brought in the local flair of everything, and then they were teaching you about it, like, oh, like I'm gonna make this mole with whatever, I think it was IRA. Yeah, they had a really cool, and they had like, some people were live barbecuing like fish and stuff. Like it wasn't just normal, and it was just really cool and really well done. And although they were bite sized, they also had like things that you could just pick up and eat. So less plates than, of course, plates, but
like food served in a banana leaf or things that were a little bit more sustainable. But yeah, it felt local because I think we were Dominican Republic or something. So yeah, it was really cool.
And you have to do that when you're not letting, or you can't have the people go experience the destination. Then if they can't go out, then you need to bring it in. And one appetizer doesn't do it. I mean, bring the people in from the outside.
That's a really good point. And Zoe Moore mentioned that too. Is like, if you're in San Francisco, get the sushi guy that makes sushi every day, the restaurant owner, right? Not only are you giving him more money, he or she,
or your sourdough bread bowl of that guy.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember doing this a long time ago in my corporate job. Is what I worked for Mannheim, and we had locations all over the world, and so we did different stations based on where Mannheim was located. St. Louis or London, right? And had that facade around that. So that's another way to incorporate it. Yeah.
Yeah. You can even do, I mean, it would be, can you imagine food truck breakfast park?
Oh, exactly. Hey, Susan, and just going back to your question too, I do want to make sure that when you're looking at those food trucks, that you do have the options for the individuals who have different dietary restrictions, as well as the height, right? For individuals who have disabilities, who might not be able to reach up and talk to Nicole to order her food, right? Or get the food. So making sure that have options for people with different disabilities as
well. And the way that we did it at that convention center one, it was the food truck facade. And then a lot of the food was pre-made there at the front and had that host there. So you didn't even have to walk up to the food truck and have that experience, but you knew that you could tell from the environment. You were going up to that one. I was going to get tacos and then exchange.
Exactly. Yeah. And that popped in another question, but it just, we did it, went out.
We'll come back and come back.
Okay, so we talked about family style, what about buffet? Because I said we're going to ask this question, buffet versus plated. So, I mean, so the plated is like the family style, but buffet, I mean, is there a way that you've used all three of those things in different ways? I mean, there's reception, plated, buffet, family style. What do you think?
It depends on your budget. It depends on the style of the event. The more that's common sense. The more formal the event, the more likely it's going to be plated. I used to go to a lot of the lunchtime networking events where they pre-plate your cheesecake and pre-plate the salad, and then they bring around the entree. And I had a friend that would go to a ton of them, and every time she sat down, she would grab the salt and cover the cheesecake in salt. And I was like, "What are you doing?" She goes, "I am fed cheesecake every day at every one of these lunches, and this is the only way I can tell myself to not eat it, is if it's inedible." So when it comes to plated, I think that there's a lot more waste individually and a lot like less choice, right? Like, oh, you're getting cheesecake. So I think that's one of the things to consider. But on a buffet, now you actually have the ability to provide more opportunity for the people that have dietary restrictions, and you can change those things. I think that the biggest thing to worry about is the really long lines at the buffet when it is single-sided or you have to serve it, and not planning for enough buffet lines based on the number. We all took the CNP exam. It told you how many per line you should be doing, and people have ignored that and forgotten all of those rules. And the lines are just ridiculous now, which is not good for you.
Yeah. If the line's too long, I'm like, then I'm not eating. And that's not good.
Well, it reminds me of going to my grandmother's retirement community, and these two ladies were, the shrimp buffet was one-sided. I mean, these are 90-year-old ladies. I'm like, oh, I'm in events and this is annoying. And she's like, you need to go in the back and tell them to fix this because this
awesome.
I'm like,
you didn't ever know.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I want that shrimp.
Here's a secret of cutting the line. I've done this only once, but I want to do it more probably. Is the line was so long, and I was sitting in the corner by the door where the staff was coming in and out, and I totally just went back there, and I'm like, I just need a break. There's so many people out there, and I was like, is there any way I'd be like, can I just eat in here? Do you care? They were like, oh my God, I am like the queen. They put a table for me. I had all, I'm like it was some stuff. And they were so excited because they're like, oh, we get it. Because they're trying to do their best. And I was like the one person that they could serve and help. And it was awesome.
Everybody doing that, but yes.
My other big complaint about buffets is if you don't fluff the food, right? So people get in there and you get to the last bits of the drizzles and you don't have anybody checking it out. Like, just make sure that you're rearranging things and making sure that it doesn't look like that's the very last muffin in there, and just put a few more in and helping to make sure that it doesn't feel.
Because if you're down to the last of whatever, people won't take it seeing that there's a line behind them, because one, you don't ever want to be the one to take the last thing, but they feel like, oh, there's not enough for people. And that makes like your servant nature of being a human being activate, and then that's not good either.
Yeah. I think using smaller vessels too, because they get replenished a lot faster, that can help keep that look and that feel fresher all the time too. So, and my friend Aurora says it does help in food waste versus
that's great. It's a great point.
Yeah. And it can be prettier, right? In different types of serving vessels. Okay. So the question that I ask all of my guests, because we talk about safety, sustainability, and inclusion, and this is Food Safety Awareness Month, but what does combining all those three words into a food and beverage experience? So what does that mean to the two of you?
Okay. What are they again?
Safety, sustainability, and inclusion.
Safety, sustainability, and inclusion. Yeah.
I think literally it means two things. It will show how much you care and how much you're paying attention. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean like paying attention so you don't miss a detail. Paying attention to where you are in the world, what's the location, what can you bring in to keep it sustainable. And I think of sustainability as how are we sustaining the local community as well. So how are we bringing them in? And that just shows like how much thought's gone into this event and how much you care. And that goes across safety, sustainability, and inclusion. And that makes imagine making the location feel included. Like that's a successful event. They're going to do better for you without having to pay more. So I think for me, that goes across the board.
I think it's a formula for belonging. Those are the three things that if I feel like I have that psychological feeling that all three of those are taken care of, that we're saving the earth together on the sustainability front. Like all of the events, especially post-COVID, that put all of my food in an individual plastic thing or in it. Like I understand the safety part, but the sustainability part has just gone to crap. And I feel less safe eating from this because we were actually destroying my planet instead of me just picking around the thing that I can't eat. And so that's the big balance that I hope we're thinking about and working toward. And then, of course, inclusion, making sure it's something people want, something people need, something surprising.
I love that. Yes. Okay, cool. So now how can people find out about what you do and how they can bring community to, I've got your website here, but any parting thoughts?
So that's one way. I also wax philosophical on LinkedIn just about every day. So I put all sorts of things. If you look for Liz Lathan on LinkedIn and Nicole, where can they find you?
That we follow us on Instagram too at the Community Factory with our adventures of where we go. I'm on LinkedIn as well, Nicole Osibodu, Osibodu. And that's really we love LinkedIn, and we built our businesses all from LinkedIn and from our friends. And we love call us, text us, even ask us questions. We love meeting everybody, getting on time messages and whatever we have.
And we cordially invite you all to join us in our community. It's called Ichi, ICHI, which is the Japanese word for one, because we are all one. It came from the phrase Ichigo, Ichi, which means one moment, one time. And that's what we try to create, which is this one moment, this unrepeatable but completely unforgettable moments. Even if it is a roadshow and you need to repeat it, you want those moments where the people that are there feel like it was just for them. So join us in Ichi. You can find it at weareichi.com. It is free to be a member.
I love that. I mean, because it's one moment, one time. That is what your event is. And I mean, your event could actually be, there's going to be lots of different moments, but your event in and of itself, where you're trying to create community and foster that going forward, right?
Yeah.
Pre-show. Yeah.
But you should leave every event with one amazing memory. And that could be around food. That could be around, it could be a keynote speaker, depending on what you're trying to create. But plan one major memory to come out of your event.
And within Ichi is an opportunity to come with us for all the cool places that we go. So there's a lot of invites and trips in there as well.
That's what we think is missing from the event industry landscape is adventure. So we're trying to re-inject adventure and conversation into our community.
Very cool. Thank you, ladies. Thank you. So where will I see you next? What industry event? Anything?
Let's see. We're going to be out at IMEX for one day. We'll be there on October 16th with the Skift Meetings team.
I will be in that room too. Yes.
So we'll see you there.
Yeah. Okay. Yay. Yeah. So everybody join us at Smart Monday at IMEX in Las Vegas. And Skift is doing, what is it called? Miguel's going to kill me that I don't remember the name of it.
So we just call it Miguel's meeting. It's
Miguel's meeting. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, all right, come to Vegas and join us for IMEX on Smart Monday. So, Liz and Nicole, thank you so much. I've shared your LinkedIn profiles with everything. Susan, thank you so much for being here. She said, thank you, refreshing. Pat, who else was visiting us? Paz, and then a Facebook. Chaz, sorry. Thank you. Chaz Papa. And then whatever Facebook user that piped in earlier. So thank you so much for being here. And until next time, stay safe and eat well.
Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.